So you're a very inspiring leader for the rest of us, and I wanted to tap you a bit about, is there a business or a trend that you see that is coming that maybe we should keep our eyes on?
I think there's several. There are many trends that are just beginning to develop, and they'll have an impact worldwide. What Silicon Valley is really good at is not so much spotting what the trend is. People believe that that's what we do. We are ahead of everybody else in certain ways, and I don't think we are. But what Silicon Valley is really good at is it has many intertwined, complex networks of information, networks of people, networks of knowledge. And I think it's very interesting to consider when there is a trend that happens, you need knowledge and a certain experience and expertise to use that to then build a new business within that trend.
Yeah.
What happens in the Valley is, no matter what the trend is, the networks are so strong, they very quickly refine this information into something that can be acted upon. And we do have access to capital, very risky capital, which would finance very early explorations into these. But what I would really stress is it's the quality of the networks that really determines how the experience or the expertise is transformed into something that can be applied to a new area. So it's not like we have a lot of people who are very bright individually, but I think we have networks that are collectively very strong, and they can very easily take a lot of risk in the early days to go explore what could be possible here. And that's something that I think over generations Silicon Valley has become very good at. And of course, it has a constant infusion of new young people coming in from every part of the world that continuously refreshes the mind bank. But still, it's the power of the network that I think really begins to utilize that individual power. We have the myth of this very bright young founder, usually by herself or himself, who emerges with this grand idea. But if you really deconstruct that, that's really true. It's a nice myth to have because I think it's helpful in telling stories.
Yeah.
But the reality is, it's the network around them that lets them do that unusual transformation of an idea into a business that perhaps will change an industry or grow a new industry. So that's something which is very unique here. And I would say, no matter what the trend is, and I'll go back to your original question about specifically what the trends are that we are beginning to see, but I think people here are confident, no matter what the trends are, that we should be able to do something about them. Now, the interesting thing is, I think for the first time, although we are facing trends that are going to be more broadly distributed worldwide, they're not really contained within the US, certainly, or within the Valley. The single biggest one out of those is broadly what we used to call mobile. But we should really think of a better name because it's now everywhere. And the scale of that is much bigger than what we have understood technology to be. Our mental models are fixed, I think, by the experience we have of a decade, 2 decades ago, where you had mostly PCs and wireline networks and the internet. The scale of the internet compared to the scale of mobile networks is actually very small. So our mental model is we take all these lessons from tech, and we confuse tech and internet very broadly. And we try and apply that to this new domain now. And I don't think a lot of lessons are applicable. I think this is a very secular, very broad-based shift that's going to happen worldwide, where technology comes into different industries, and the receptors of technology are now in multiple billions. Smartphones, phones of various kinds, are going to be in 6 billion plus people's hands. I think we are more than halfway there already. And that is an order of magnitude more than the scale of the internet, where we have developed most of what we today think about as tech, whether it's productivity for knowledge workers, whether it's technology and infrastructure sense on the computing and the server side, or data and what we do with data across different kinds of industries. I think with the mobile scale of the kind that it is, we'll of course be able to use a lot of the experience and knowledge we have from the first generation of the internet, but I think most of the interesting behaviors and the trends will be completely new.
Very interesting. And in maybe here in this network or maybe somewhere else, is there some leaders that you find inspiring, that you keep your eye on what they're doing?
So for us, I think that's a great lesson of being in the Valley now for almost 18 years, that the best leaders, the highest sources, highest information quality resources lie at the edges of these networks. These are new entrants into these networks. So people that, for example, I've known for 2 decades, yes, they're very trusty nodes in this network. I can ping them for just about anything. But I don't think that's where I'll have new information coming in. So for us, new information is going to come from an intern who is maybe working here for a few months, a new person who arrives here with some notion that this seems absurd to everybody here. But we really have to listen to those, because those are the new pieces of information that will drive big changes. Yes, there are going to be incremental changes of many kinds. So somebody experiences the field, comes with a business plan and says, here's what I can do. That likely will work. But that likely will also be very incremental to the way the industry is today. Now, it may still be a very successful company, a large company, but something that dramatically changes and creates a number of new opportunities is likely to happen with somebody from outside this established network. And in a strange way, I think the Valley is actually really good at recognizing it. Even though it seems very insular, very closed, and very sort of cliquish in the way it's networked together. But it's strange that at the outskirts of it, it's actually very open to new people and new ideas. Because we know, we've learned this, that that's the only place where you'll have dramatic new changes occurring.
So you take that thought, and you've also worked for large companies as well.
Oh, a tiny, for a small period of time.
But you actually understand them, so you've been there. What would be your recommendations to some of the leaders in those large established companies? What should they do?
I think that the hardest thing for leaders to do is to recognize that their formative years gave them lessons that may no longer be valid. And that's a hard thing to realize at a very human level. To walk up to somebody and say that, look, everything that made you who you are today may not actually be really important for the next whatever it is you want to do, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, or a certain kind of project or new projects you want to do. And there's a reason why in large companies they always have efforts to have new product introductions of various kinds and new innovation they want to drive. And most of them run over time, over budget, and below the results they expected. Because people fundamentally are being asked to change their DNA in order to express something new, and that's just hard to do. So I think you do have to drive a much broader change in order to behave really differently. And really recognize where are the networks that hold that unusual amount of knowledge that you can really exploit, and how to build them. Because some of these large companies have fantastic amounts of deep knowledge, but that knowledge is not, unlike the Valley, I think that knowledge is not really held in networks. It's very contained inside companies and maybe networks inside those companies. And they've had good reason traditionally not to actually be very open to everybody else. Now, in the Valley here, it's not unusual to find people from competing companies meeting socially and otherwise every few days, and even meeting on very professional topics very regularly. There's, for example, a group of engineers we know up in San Francisco that has either CTO or Chief of Infrastructure or Director of Engineering or Director of Data kind of titles, and those all companies are frequently very competitive. And this is a group that meets every couple of weeks. They angel invest together, they look at new companies together, they advise new startups. So those kind of activities keep the networks very open and very refreshed. In companies, I think the networks have aged, and the amount of knowledge they hold is not being refreshed anymore. So yes, there is knowledge there, but I think the rate of refresh has gone down, which they do need to change. So I think for big companies, I think it's imperative that they recognize where those networks are. How do we create new ones? And it's not about hiring somebody who's really spectacular or putting a lot of money into a particular area. That rarely is the main determining reason. I think they need to figure out where those networks are, aggressively create them if they don't exist. Wherever they are, they typically have headquarters and branches in many locations, network with local education facilities, with local small companies, with local industries, because something new will come out of that. And they have to believe that, because I think there's a model in the Valley and other places that proves that happens.
Very good. Very interesting. Position that you have. What is most exciting for you in the role and the job that you do?
Well, the most exciting thing for us is, without a lot of effort, we get to sort of refresh our assumptions and our knowledge nearly every week on the job here. We meet anywhere from a few to tens of entrepreneurs and companies every week that are doing something interesting, that are challenging the status quo or figuring out new ways of doing something. And if you have the right personality, at least for me individually, it's completely energizing to be able to think about something that hasn't happened yet, but it may unfold in several ways. And we're not certain it will happen that way, but to be able to run the thought experiment that it could happen this way, at least to me, is very refreshing. I think it changes the way you think about nearly everything. And I think the personality has to fit, because you could also get very dissatisfied with everything and saying, look, nothing is really good, because you're always in the business of changing.
Yeah.
But if you find that interesting, then I think it's amazing to be able to do that week in, week out, of hearing new things, new perspectives, and new takes on something that you may have thought was either unchangeable or unshakable or just a giant industry that would never change. No, we see that nearly every week. Which
obviously adds to your insight on actually where to take your next steps as well.
Yes.
Yeah, to go forward.